she stood there a little longer in her slip and her stocking feet, and she looked up and saw me in the doorway. I'm just a kid. And she looked at me, and she looked at that dress, and she looked back at me, never said a word. She walked over, she pulled that dress on, she put on her high heels, and she walked to the Sears, and she got a full-time minimum wage job answering the phones. And that minimum wage job saved our house, and it saved our family. And I think of that as the lesson my mother taught me. No matter how scared you are, and no matter how hard it looks, when it comes down to it, you reach down deep, you find what you have to find, and you take care of the people you love. And it was only years after that that I came to understand. It wasn't just what my mother taught me, it's what millions of people do in America every day. No matter how hard it looks, and no matter how scared they are, they reach down deep, they find what they have to find, and they take care of themselves and the people they love. That's what we do. But it was only years later that I came to understand that that same story is also a story about government. Because when I was a girl, a full-time minimum wage job in America would support a family of 3. It would cover a mortgage, it would cover the utilities, and it would put food on the table. Today, a full-time minimum wage job in America will not keep a mama and a baby out of poverty. That is wrong, and that is why I am in this fight. There it is. Yep. And understand this, that difference is no accident. That difference is not something that just happens over time. That difference is about who government works for. Because when I was a girl, the question asked in Washington when they set the minimum wage is, what does it take a family of 3 to make it in America? What does it take a family of 3 to get a toehold in America's middle class? What does it take a family of 3 to have some basic security they can build on? Today, the question asked in Washington is, where do we set the minimum wage to maximize the profits of giant multinational corporations? Well, I don't want a government that works for giant multinational corporations. I want one that works for our families. Yep. There it is. So, like I said before, the boys, they joined the military. That was their path, their chance at America's middle class. Me, I had a different path in life. I have known what I wanted to be since 2nd grade. You may laugh, you didn't decide till what, like 4th grade? 5th grade in the back row, right? No, I have known and I have never wavered. I wanted to be a public school teacher. Can we hear it for America's public school teachers? Yes, yes. I wanted to be a public school teacher, and I just want you to know, I invested early. I used to line up my dollies and teach school. I had a reputation for being tough but fair. But it's all I ever wanted. Whenever anybody talked about anything, I would always say, I'm going to be a teacher, but I'm going to be a teacher, I'm going to be a teacher. By the time I graduated from high school, my family didn't have the money for a college application, much less to send me off to 4 years at a university. So, like a lot of Americans, I have a story that's not a straight line. Mine has a lot of twists and turns in it. So here's how my story does. Graduated from high school and got a scholarship to college. Go debate. Yeah. And then at 19, fell in love, got married, dropped out, and got a minimum wage job. Yay. Not to that guy. That story's coming. And look, a good life. A life I had chosen. Nobody had put this on me. I chose. But it wasn't the dream. And I thought I'd given it up. And we're living down in Houston, and then I found it. A commuter college that was 45 minutes away and cost $50 a semester. Yeah, and for a price I could pay for on a part-time waitressing job. I finished my 4-year diploma. I became a special education teacher. I have lived my dream. Oh, and I loved it. We have public school teachers in here. There we go. We got a lot of them. We have any special needs teachers? So I'm going to need you all to back me up on this. It is not a job. It is a calling. I love those babies. It's true, isn't it? I had 4 to 6-year-olds in special education. To this day, I can remember their faces, their names. I can tell you things we worked on. I love that work. And I probably would still be doing that work to this day. But my story has some more twists and turns, and here's how it goes. By the end of that first year in teaching, I was visibly pregnant. And the principal did what principals did in those days. Wished me luck and hired someone else for the job. So, there I am. I'm at home. I got a little baby. I can't get a job. What am I going to do? Got to do something. What am I going to do? I know. I'll go to law school. And that's what I did. I headed off to law school. By this point, we're living in New Jersey. Found a public law school, $450 a semester. Baby on hip, head off and do 3 years of law school. Graduated from law school, visibly pregnant. You will discover a pattern to these stories. Took the bar, passed the bar, and practiced law for 45 minutes. And then went back to my first love, which is teaching. I traded little ones for big ones and spent most of my life teaching in law school. Made other changes in my life at this point. Husband number 1, hint, it is never a good sign when you have to number your husbands. H1 and I parted ways, and then I found Bruce, and I'm still hanging on to him. So that worked. Yes. Oh, a good man. I taught in law school for most of my grown-up life. That's what I've done. Now, I don't know if most people do this, but for somebody like me, grew up on kind of the ragged edge of the middle class, and I taught about money, right? If it was a course about money, first I learned it, and then I taught it. So I taught contract law and commercial law. I taught secured transactions and payment systems. I taught corporate finance and partnership finance, debtor-creditor law, bankruptcy law. Man, I was in it. But there was always one question that I worked on, and that is, what's happening to America's working families? What's happening? Why is it that America's middle class is being hollowed out? Why is it that people who work every bit as hard as my mother worked 2 generations ago today find the path so much rockier and so much steeper? And for people of color, even rockier and even steeper. Why? The answer is just like the question on minimum wage. It's about who government works for. Who is Washington working for? So think of it this way. We have a government in Washington that works great, works fabulously for giant drug companies, just not for people trying to get a prescription filled. Am I right? Yeah. We have a government in Washington that works great for anyone who wants to make investments in private prisons or private detention centers at our borders. It just doesn't work for the human beings whose lives are torn apart by that. We have a government that works fabulously for giant oil companies that want to drill everywhere, just not for the rest of us who see climate change bearing down upon us. And when you see a government that works great, works fabulously for those with money, and is not working so well for much of anyone else, that is corruption, pure and simple, and we need to call it out for what it is. Corruption. Corruption, and understand this, that money is felt everywhere in Washington. If you, whatever issue brought you here today, whether it's the price of prescription drugs, or it's gun safety, or it's climate, or it's student loans, whatever issue brought you here today, if there is a decision to be made in Washington, I guarantee you it has been touched by money. It has been influenced by money. It has been shaped by money. It has been nudged by money. Money everywhere in the system. It's campaign contributions, you bet, but it is so much more. It's the armies of lobbyists and lawyers, the PR firms, the think tanks, the bought and paid for experts. In fact, let me tell you just one quick story about this. Go back to the early 1990s, late 1980s, and look at what's happening on climate. We get it. As a country, the scientists know, they're calling it global warming, but they get it. Putting this much carbon in the air is a disaster, potentially. It's going to destroy the future of this planet. It's out there. The science is there, and it's coming up publicly. People are talking about it, and here's the thing. Democrats and Republicans are working together on the climate issue. They're talking about, what do we need to do? Do we need to give more power to the Environmental Protection Agency? Do we need to put more money into cleanup? What do we need to do to avert this disaster? It's not a political issue. Everybody wants to work on it. And then along come the Koch brothers. Ah, I see you've heard of the Koch brothers. Yeah, along come the Koch brothers, and the big oil companies and some of the big polluters. And they say, in effect, if Congress gets serious about this climate thing, that's going to bite into our bottom line. We're not going to have the same profits that we run right now. So they've got an investment decision to make, and they've got choices. They could decide, fossil fuels no more, we're going to go entirely into clean. They don't do that. They could decide, we're going to put our R&D money into how you take carbon out of the air, how you clean up the way. They don't do that. They make an investment decision. They invest in politicians. They invest in lobbying Washington. And one of their biggest investments, this is the one that just turns the knife for me, is bought and paid for experts. The climate deniers. The folks who stand up and say, well, I'm a doctor of, and as a doctor of, the business about climate has gone up, climate has gone down, climate's been around for a long time, dinosaurs loved it, it's all gonna be fine, blah, 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 right? Why? Not because those guys don't understand climate, but because there was something those bought and paid for experts could do. They built an umbrella that the politicians could hide under and keep taking Koch brother money and keep taking oil company money and keep taking big polluter money and say, gee, I don't know. It's all a mystery to me. You want to understand the climate crisis we face today? It's 25 years of corruption in Washington that brought us here. Yep. And here's the thing. We want to make it different. It's not going to be one little statute over here and two little regulations over there. We want difference. Then it's going to take big structural change. Anybody here for some big structural change? Yeah. So let's talk about big structural change. Here's my first proposal, and that is let's attack the corruption head on. It's time. We've played defense long enough. It is time to go on offense against money in Washington, and I got a plan for that. Yep. Now, here's the thing about the plan. Since money is felt in lots of different places, you wouldn't be surprised that this is a big and complicated plan. In fact, here's the good news. I have the biggest anti-corruption plan since Watergate. Here's the bad news. We need the biggest anti-corruption plan since Watergate. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just give you a sampling out of the plan, just a tasting out of the plan. Here's part one. End lobbying as we know it. Just go. Here's another. Block the revolving door between Wall Street and Washington. Enough. Here's one you may never have thought about, but that matters. Make the United States Supreme Court follow basic rules of ethics. Okay, I could do these all morning long. I really could. But I tell you what, let me do just one more. Just one more. You really want to hose out some corruption? Here's one. Make every single person who runs for federal office put their tax returns online. Yeah. You did that. Yeah. All of them. There we go. All right. So that's part one. Attack the corruption head on. Because when you attack it head on, now you got a chance to make other changes. Part two for me is let's make some structural change in this economy. And let me tell you where I start. I start with what I see now around us, and that is giant corporations. I mean truly giant corporations that have so much power in this country. Corporations that have swallowed up the little businesses, swallowed up the medium-sized businesses. Shoot, they've swallowed up what used to be big businesses, and it has given them enormous power. Power over their employees, power over their customers, power over their communities, and power in Washington. We need a president with the courage to enforce the antitrust laws and break up big ag, break up big tech, break up big banking. It is time. Yep. All right, that's part of it. But it can't just be about the corporations and government. We need structural change, and that means we need more power in the hands of workers. We need to make it easier to join a union and to give unions more power when they negotiate. Unions built America's middle class, and unions will help rebuild America's middle class. Here's another way we can make structural change in this economy. It's time for a wealth tax in America. Yep. So here's my idea. It's a wealth tax on fortunes above $50 million. So everybody here, your first $50 million will be free and clear. Yeah, lady in the front row says, oh, good. She says I can deal with this woman. Okay. First 50 million is free and clear, but your 50 millionth and first dollar, you got to pitch in 2 cents. And 2 cents for every dollar after that. But by the way, just so everybody gets how a wealth tax works, anybody in here own your own home or your own farm or grow up in a family that own their own home? You've been paying a wealth tax, right? It's just called a property tax. All I'm saying that's different is for the top 0.1%, the 70,000 greatest fortunes in this country, as well as your real estate, we should be including your stock portfolio, the diamonds, the Rembrandt, and the yacht. That's it. I just want to include all of it, big stuff. And here's the thing. I've had some folks say, after all, what do you got against billionaires? I mean, had a great idea, got out there and worked hard for it. Why are you so cranky with billionaires? My answer is I'm not cranky. Well, maybe I am, but, but I'm not cranky with billionaires. Look, here's how I see this. You built a great fortune in this country. Good for you. Good for you. But I guarantee you built it, at least in part, using workers all of us help pay to educate. Yep. You built it, at least in part, getting your goods to market on roads and bridges all of us help pay to build. You built it, at least in part, protected by police and firefighters, all of us help pay the salaries for. And we're happy to do it. We're Americans. We believe in these investments. We're glad to make them. All we're saying is if you make it big, I mean really big, I mean 0.1% big, pitch in 2 cents so everybody else gets a chance to make it. 2 cents. 2 cents. Bailey won his 2 cents this year for Halloween. So 2 cents. 2 cents. What can we do for 2 cents? Here's the answer. We can do universal child care for every baby in this country age 0 to 5. 100% of them. Universal pre-K for every 3-year-old and 4-year-old in America. There it is. And we can stop exploiting the largely women who do this work and raise the wages of every child care worker and preschool teacher in America. 2 cents. 2 cents. We can do all of that for our babies, plus we can invest $800 billion directly into our public schools. Think about that. Quadruple the funding for Title I schools that are teaching low-income children. Here's one that matters to me so much. We can, for the first time in American history, fully fund IDEA and say that a child with a disability gets the full educational opportunity that child needs. We can do that. Same 2 cents, we can also provide excellence grants. We can put about $100 billion into this, and here's how it would work. The math, and yes, girls do math. The math on this roughly is about $1 million extra from the federal government for every single public school in America to do what that public school needs to do to lift its excellence. For some, it'll be school buses. For some, it'll be counselors. For some, it'll be computers. For some, it'll be libraries. But the point is, for all of us as a nation, to make an investment in all of our public schools. We can do it. 2 cents. And I'm not through yet. I'm still on that same 2 cents so we can invest in all of our babies, all of our K-12, and we can make technical school, community college, four-year college, tuition-free for anybody who wants to get an education. We can help level the playing field and put $50 billion directly into our historically black colleges and universities. Yep. And just one more. We can cancel student loan debt for 95% of the folks who've got it. It's all about the choices we make. 2 cents, and we can make an investment in an entire generation. So that's part 2. Part 1, attack the corruption head on. Part 2, make some structural change in this economy. And you know, I should add one more when I'm talking about structural change, and that is, I talk about our babies and the importance of investing in the next generation, but it's also the case that we need to live our values every day. And that means after a lifetime of hard work, people are entitled to retire with dignity. And that means protecting Social Security. And I got a plan for that. So here it is. By increasing the payroll taxes on the top 2% in America, we can extend the financial longevity of Social Security for decades to come, plus we can increase the monthly Social Security check and disability checks by $200 a month. Think about that. We can lift nearly 5 million people out of poverty, and we can make the budgets a whole lot easier for millions more. It's all about our values. We can do this. Okay, so attack the corruption, structural change in the economy, and part 3, we need to protect our democracy. I support a constitutional amendment to ensure the right of every American citizen to vote and to get that vote counted. It's time to end political gerrymandering in America. We need to roll back every voter suppression law in this country. And just one more that I want to mention. In Citizens United, democracy is not for sale. So, there it is, just 3 things that I want. Just 3 things, right? Part 1, attack the corruption head on. Part 2, get some structural change in this economy. And part 3, we got to work to protect our democracy. For a lot of people, those might seem like 3 unrelated things, but for me, they all go to a fundamental question. Who gets opportunity in America? Do we want to be in America where opportunity is reserved for those born into privilege? Or in America that is an America where every single child in this country has an opportunity for a first-rate education? We can do that. To be in America where everybody has got a chance, an opportunity to get a good job, an opportunity to start your own business, an opportunity to move back to a small town. Remember, I was a special education teacher. Sometimes what opportunity means is an opportunity to be able to live independently. An America of expanding opportunities. An America where you get to love the person you love and build the family you want to build. That kind of opportunity. I believe in that America. And I'll tell you why. Not in a million years did I ever think I would run for public office. It's not what I was going to do. But my daddy, he ended up as a janitor. I stand here today because of opportunity. I got the opportunity to be a public school teacher, the opportunity to be a college professor, the opportunity to be a senator in the United States Congress, and the opportunity to be a candidate for President of the United States of America. Dream big, fight hard, let's win. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love it. That's it. Thank you. Thank you. That's fabulous. Thank you. Thank you. So, want to do some Q&A? You going to run this thing, Amy? All right. Have at it. Oh, you need a mic that works?
I am.
Oh, there you
I
go.
am. Okay, first question.
We got our questioners lined up here.
Who won our first ticket, John? Awesome.
Thank
Hi.
you, Senator, for being here.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here. Tell me your name.
My name is Dee Patters, and I'm from Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
It's nice to see you. I'm glad you're here.
I'm hoping you'll allow me to ask you 2 questions today.
Sure.
Excellent.
For the price of one.
One is very personal to me, and the other involves the people that I work with and advocate for every day.
Mm-hmm.
My first question is that I've had type 1 diabetes for over 30 years. I've recently also been dealing with a movement disorder.
I'm so sorry.
We all deal. However, I've read through your plan that you put out for your Medicare for All, and I did notice that you do address that you will be having a plan you'll give us for what's going to happen in the transition in the coming weeks. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping what you can touch upon today is what do you want to say to people who have chronic diseases or are dealing with acute medical issues that have health care that they like? I wholeheartedly support universal health care, but I also worry about the transition and whether or not the continuity of care will be able to be there as we transition to Medicare for All.
Okay, so here's how I see this. Anytime we've got an important question as a country, the first thing we should start with are our values. And healthcare is a basic human right, and we fight for basic human rights. That's what we do as a country. We leave no one behind, and that means people with chronic illnesses, chronic diseases that they have to cope with. That means people with pre-existing conditions. That means no one. We leave no one behind. So for me, that's what Medicare for All is all about. It is the way that we make sure that everyone in this country doesn't just get some coverage, but that everyone in this country gets to see the doctors they want to see and take the medicines that the doctors prescribe and get the treatments that the doctors say they need. That there's no insurance company in the middle to say, sorry, that doctor is out of network. No insurance company in the middle to say, I'm sorry, we don't authorize that treatment. No insurance company in the middle to say, I'm sorry, you can't have that prescription. Maybe you could get your doctor to prescribe something else. That we should be in America where you get the health care that you need and that no one goes broke over it. This is the part I care about. So think of it this way. This is how I think of healthcare generally. Right now, we have 4 different ways that healthcare gets paid for in America. Part of it, this will help you on the transition part of it is the federal government through Medicaid and Medicare right now. State governments through Medicaid, you all are dealing with that right now in Iowa, right? Um, Employers who since 2010 have had a legal obligation to provide health care for their employees if they have more than 50 employees. That was under the Affordable Care Act when it passed. And the fourth is people reaching in their own pockets. Reaching in their own pockets for premiums, reaching in their own pockets for deductibles, reaching in their own pockets for copays, reaching in their own pockets for services that are not covered, reaching in their own pockets for medications that are not covered, reaching in their own pockets when they need more physical therapy than the number that the insurance company said, and so on and so on and so on. That's the fourth bucket. That bucket over the next 10 years is going to be about $11 trillion. That's how much Americans with health insurance, Americans who've got coverage are going to keep reaching in their pockets. Right now, the average family, not the one with special medical problems, but the average family with health care is reaching in their pockets about $12,500 a year. And God forbid that you end up with a really serious diagnosis that puts you into like the family I met in Indianola a couple of weeks ago, where the couple comes up and he said, I have gold-plated insurance, the fabulous insurance, the best insurance on earth, and I love my insurance until I had the aneurysm and my wife was diagnosed with cancer. And he said, we are now out $100,000 in medical bills that our insurance won't cover. So that's the slope we're on if we do nothing. So let me just describe in transition. The part that the federal government pays stays the same. The part that the state government pays stays the same, only they just write the check to Medicare. The part that the employers pay stays the same, only they write the check to Medicare. The part that changes over 10 years is the $11 trillion that you got to reach into your pocket to come up with paying for health care. And what I propose is there are other ways we can pay that $11 trillion and send the bill to Medicare. And the bottom line on it's got a lot of pieces on how to do it, but a big part of how we do that is we say things like, how about we do better enforcement of the tax laws, which would give us $2 trillion. I'm in favor of that. I don't know about anybody else. We ask the big corporations that hide their money in offshore places where they don't get taxed to have to pay taxes on that money. I'm in favor of that. We ask the billionaires to pay a little more. I'm in favor of that. They're doing okay. And that's how we fill up the $11 trillion difference. But that's really all this is about. It's about where you send the bills. And so for me, that's why the finance part was so important on this, is so we could see what the basic choices are. I should say one other thing about it because it's relevant to where you are. You mentioned, so I assume you don't mind talking about it publicly, that you have diabetes, right? Anybody in here know anyone with diabetes or have diabetes themselves? Look how many people in this room. So that means a lot of you have familiarity with insulin, right? You know what insulin should cost? About this much. Why? Because it's been around forever. It's not covered by a patent. It's not protected. And yet, the drug companies have managed to continue to manipulate that market and keep the price of insulin up. So that I actually meet people across this country who say they ration their insulin. They take half doses. They take 3/4 doses. They try to make 3 doses do when they really should be doing 5. That's not the way to deliver health care in America. So I'll tell you another big part of what this plan is about. It's about a plan I put out a couple of years ago to say on generic drugs that either we're going to have functioning markets or the United States government's going to let a contract out to make this stuff at cost and then make it available to people. So we bring those costs down. So that's the general outline for how this works. I hope that gives you at least some framework around it. But the heart of it really has to go back to this fundamental question. I want you to think about this again, about health care. We're on a path right now, $11 trillion that families are going to keep reaching in their pockets over the next 10 years. We put that $11 trillion elsewhere, and that's going to be the biggest economic boon to middle-class families in generations. This will be about strengthening America's middle class. It will be about people who don't have to keep a job they don't like because it's the only way they can get their health insurance. It will be about freeing people up to be able to start the little business you want to start. And this will be about nobody has to wake up in the middle of the night wondering how they're going to pay their health care bills. We can do this for America. So we can do this. Thank you. Good. We got another one? Oh, you're going to do another question. You bet.
Thank you.
You bet.
I'm also an immigration attorney who's been practicing immigration law now for a little over a year. I mainly practice family and humanitarian and, immigration law, and I work for a nonprofit. Practicing immigration law has been heartbreaking. I very rarely get to tell my consults or even my clients good news. The waiting time for something as simple as a employment authorization document is over 6 months. So with that, sorry, thank you. So turning from that to immigration court, right now we have immigration judges who are not independent. Their jobs rely on quotas that are given, that are on dashboards on their computer that they can't make go away. In the Omaha Immigration Court, currently for defensive asylums, we're looking at about an 11% approval rating. Now, there is a large difference in approval numbers depending on the jurisdiction. New York is much higher, about, I think, in the 70s. Sorry, my recent movement disorder is super fun. So I guess my question with this is, I have clients who have come to the United States because they have experienced kidnapping, torture, sexual violence at the hands of their government. They come here, we're in front of immigration court, again, Omaha, 11% chance, and then, again, immigration judges are not independent. This was the biggest surprise to me coming from prosecution to immigration, and so if you could speak about your thoughts on the way that the immigration court is set up now and how you would do any changes if you were to become president.
So you don't have to just hear my thoughts on this. You can actually go to elizabethwarren.com. I have actually written about this, and we have a plan for the independence of our immigration courts because I think it's powerfully important. If I can, I just want to expand, though, on one point, and that is, again, we need to start with our values. And on this one, immigration does not make our country weaker. Immigration makes our country stronger. We need to expand legal immigration. We need a pathway to citizenship for the people who are here that is not limited to the dreamers. It's people who are here who are our neighbors, our friends, people we work with. We need people to come out of the shadows and be on a pathway to citizenship. And we need to end this Trump-made crisis.